Welcome to this session of Organize Your Money from Empowering Self-Care, where we are going to watch today about the credit score. The credit score is a game, the credit system is a game, and it's very important that we start understanding why it's important and how to properly play this game. The majority of issues that we have with debt is because we don't understand the credit score part. So this is the first part that we have to really understand to start diving into what is a good debt, a bad debt, which we are going to see in the next session. But today we are going to understand how our credit management is relevant and how to do it properly. Everyone should have a credit score at this point, unless you really want to get out of the benefits that it can bring and that we are going to see in a bit. So I'm going to share my screen to start today. So let's go there. Credit score is normally rated between 300 and 850 points and is considered fair from 60 points and good from 720 points. You have to check at the moment that you check this video what are the current values in your moment of life, but this is what is today. And so how we build this and why it's important. So a good credit score is important because it helps you to reduce interest rates on loans. This is very key for everything, and is the more you show the system that you properly pay your things, the less risk you are for them. And one of the best or the most common keys for when we invest, for instance, our money, is that the lower the risk, the lower the interest rate. If we are investing money, the lower what we earn. But if we are uh, borrowing money, we are gonna, or normally what the system does, or what we are taught to do is the more risk, the more interest rate, because there are more chances that that money can be lost. At the same time, when we are borrowing from a bank or from a system, we are gonna be forced to pay. So it's kind of a risk, but it's not really a risk because we cannot simply disappear and not pay. That's not a route that we are gonna consider. Even more if we are borrowing from friends or family, it's like we really need to be fair with people and in general simply honor our word, pay our things, but for that, we also have to be very mindful of what we are committing to. Because if we simply say yes to every offer that we receive for loans or for credit cards or things like that, without really checking our budget or our capacity to pay time to time, then is when we are going to start having problems. So why having a good credit score reduce interest rates is because it shows the system that we are less risky. And because of that, and how the system and the general ideas in finances work, then if we are at less risk, then we or lending money to us is less risk, so there is a less interest rate to gain the money, to be able to access that money. And also, this is important if we are going to buy a house, or if we are going to buy a car, or if we want to start a business and we need some credit. All of this is going to be very important for us. So if we want to make big investments that come from a lending, it's important that we also have a very good story in the credit score so that we can access the best interest rates, and then those loans in the future are gonna be less expensive for us. And this is a way to take care of money. The other is that sometimes insurances lower costs if we have a good credit score. And also, it has happened to me that some rental applications for living requires the credit score and even set like a range of they only rent if you have a good credit score, for instance. Also, some job applications check the credit score and tell me or think if you are seeing this recorded, what else do you think that the credit score could be useful for you? In my case, I also like to see it. I like to see that I am doing well. It's a form also of tracking that nothing is being done with my name or with my profile, that there are no things open in the credit world on my name that I didn't do or stuff like that. And I truly just enjoy like having a good credit score every time that it changes low or up. I learn what caused that, and so it's a game. And a very, very close partner of the credit score are the credit cards, because it's one way to build the credit score. So we are gonna see it in a bit, but for starting, I just wanna let you know that the credit score and the credit cards are together, and the credit cards are a tool to pay and a tool to build the credit, not a tool to debt necessarily. So the more you see it as a intermediate for paying what you would actually pay with your money, the better you're gonna behave in this game. If you assume uh, wrongly that you are accessing more money or things like that, then you're gonna just fall in more debt that maybe you don't want to. So be very mindful about what's your budget, very mindful about what you're using the credit cards for, and very mindful about how you're playing this game and how you're playing the game in the different ways that it allows you to access the credit system. So we are gonna start seeing what a credit score is built for and how the weight is. This image that I took from internet is actually wrong, because the weight of each of these um, types of features impact the credit score differently. So I'm going to tell you exactly how they impact and how to do it properly. So the first thing is the payment history. But in the payment history, the most important, of course, is to pay by the due date. That's the most important, at least the minimum payment. But the best strategy is actually to pay the statement balance. But pay the statement balance in full. It means if you have every time that you access a credit, you have like a period that not necessarily falls into the calendar month, but they have normally month length of what they are gonna account for your payments or for when you use the money. So normally everything is monthly, as we have been talking in different sessions. But here, what you have to pay attention is what is the statement balance? What is the balance that I was owing in the moment that they closed the previous month? Regardless of if they are closing the dates, the 10, the 15, the 20, and you can actually ask them to like what is the best closing date for you. That's a good tip that you can do, like um, request the bank the date that may be best aligned with the strategy to pay the things on time and do your budget. You can think of these things in the future when you feel comfortable on these things. But the point is, don't pay minimums. Try to pay always the full statement balance, because minimums means that everything that you spend at the last period and that you didn't pay because you're paying just the minimum, then you are gonna pay the extra that you didn't pay plus the interest rate that they are gonna charge for that. So you have normally like 2 weeks or 3 weeks to do these payments. So pay the statement balance is the best strategy to earn this 35% of good behavior in your credit score, and you have to pay by the due date. So pay on time and pay the statement balance. That's the strategy here. Then you have your credit utilization. So how much amount you owe from your available credit. It means you take into account all the credits that you are accessing, say a credit card and a car loan. And I'm giving these two examples because the credit card is a revolving credit. Also exists something called lines of credit, and these things that are like you have a limit, you can pay for that while you use it, and the limit is gonna be free for use again. Revolving account is that you pay, and then when you pay, you get access to that credit again. So in a credit card, for instance, if you use and then you pay, even in the same month, you can pay in the same month, and it's a good strategy to do it when you, for instance, pay, I don't know, tickets for a travel. And then those tickets are going to increase your utilization rate if it's very different. The total of what you're using is very different from what you normally do. Then it's a good idea to pay before the closing date so that the moment that they close the, the month in their own month calculations, then that is not going to be taken into account. So what I'm trying to say is be very strategic on what you want the system to see that you are owing when they close the month. So again, if normally I use the credit card to pay for my, I don't know, like my health insurance, to say one example. If I normally pay that every month and it's 300 that I am paying, then if one day I have the savings for a trip and I am gonna travel and I pay through the credit card because I wanna earn cash back or something like that, and I don't pay during the month that money, then when they close the month to tell me what is my minimum and my statement balance, there is gonna be a peak, right? Like before I was using 300, and then I don't know, 1,000. So this peak is gonna decrease the credit score because it's gonna show that I am using more than normal my credit access. But it's gonna be impact even more if the percentage of use is above the 30% utilization rate. So, and it doesn't matter if it's one month different from the other. If you use above the 30% of your credit access, then your credit score is gonna be impact downwards. The ideal is that you only use kind of 10% of what you have access in the credit system. The other type of credit that is important to take into account is the installment credit. So for instance, if I have a auto loan for 20% of the car value, because we know that it's important that we try to access this type of goods with some down payment. So say that the car is $5,000, and then the loan is gonna be $1,000. So the moment that we access this credit, then our utilization rate of this credit is gonna be the full 100%, right? And if I am using 10% of my credit card on average, then all of the sudden this is gonna be very big, right? Like the utilization rate. But this is gonna stabilize very quickly because when I start paying the car loan, hopefully more than the monthly payment that they establish, the moment that I start paying, then the utilization rate is gonna decrease in this installment credit because before it was 1,000, but now I had this 1,000, but now I owe 800. Now I owe 400. And the more I go down, the more the utilization rate is gonna decrease, and then my credit score is gonna stabilize. So when we see that the credit score changes, or when we make decisions for accessing new credit, we have to expect the changes. We have to say, okay, this is gonna increase for instance, my credit limit, right? In this example, by 1,000, but it's gonna also increase my utilization rate a lot, and that's normal. And I still want the car because I feel that is important for me right now. It's aligned with my budget. So we don't have to be just making decisions to not touch the credit score, but we also have to take into account that the changes are not gonna be big. That's why they have ranges, you know. And so as far as we kind of stay in the same range, we are fine. And the more we understand how these different factors impact the credit score, the better it's gonna be for us to really build through time a good or excellent credit score, and just stay there regardless of movements, decisions, and life milestones that we are gonna have. So here the the two things impact, the two type of credit impact. But the most important is that we try to keep the utilization rate below the 10% or 30%. Keep in mind that this is calculated based on the total credit access that you have. So for instance, in the example of the car, one good strategy is that that month we keep the utilization of the credit card in almost 0%. So we can do that by not using it or by paying before the closing date. And that way we kind of manage this bump a bit. But the most important is that we take into account all the credit access that we have, and we check how much is the 10%. But remember that what important the most is not how much the credit system allows you to use, is how much your budget allows you to do. So you have to take into account both things, like, okay, my budget is these things I can pay with the credit card, and or with the loan, or this thing I am accessing through this loan, or you make the accounts in your budget, and then you compare how much is the 10% of your accessible credit, and then you check which is the least, and the least is gonna be your limit monthly. So if your budget allows less, then that's it. Even if it's just 1% utilization rate, which is under 10%, which is great. But if your budget, for instance, allows more, I don't know, like 50% utilization, then you are gonna be paying during the month because you don't want to go over 30%, hopefully not over 10% utilization rate. So play with that and see what are your true limits, and when is the best way to use your credit. For instance, I pay every week or every 2 weeks my credit cards, and so my utilization rate is super low. But if I wanted to access a card or something, I will have to double check that strategy to check how to manage the bumping of this peak in the utilization rate that I will have if I access that card with a loan. So as you see, it's kind of a game, and you have just to decide your strategy and do it. So In the first case, the strategy is very simple, right? Like we pay on time and we pay the statement balance at least in full. The second strategy is the calculation of what is your limit, your true limit, comparing the access to credit that you have and what is the 10% of that, what is the 30% of that, and then versus what you can access through your budget and check how you are gonna try to keep your utilization rate constant and how are you gonna try to keep it under 10% if possible. The next one is the length of credit history. And so the main thing here is if you haven't started, take your fear away and start wisely. So that's why you are seeing this training and this session so that you can understand how to do it wisely so that you can enter the game, the sooner the better, but you don't fall in the trap, which is the debts that are not healthy. So for that, you have to really pay attention on, okay, I'm starting this credit line or accessing this credit card or the way that we choose to start because I want to start building credit score, not because I want to access things that are not healthy to you in right now or your future self. So the sooner the better. Is counted as excellent if you have more than 9 years on average in your credit history length. Normally, people have an average of 5 to 6 years, and it can also be calculated through time. So, normally, if you have 3 years ago your credits, um, then you have an average. If you started 3 years ago, you have an average length of history. If you started 25 years ago, you have an excellent credit history, which means that this can only build through time and also by not accessing so many new things because every new thing is going to affect the average, right? So it's very important that we also take that into account because every time, so it's better to start soon and to choose soon what we want to keep in the long term so that in the future we only focus on life milestones like investing or if you want a house, if yeah, like if you want to start a business and you need some loan for that. But we are gonna see in the next session what is the best way to decide where to enter or not. Today we are when it's the case of loans or through debts. But here I like to talk more about credit cards because credit cards are just a vehicle to pay something that we would pay with a debit card anyways. That's the best way to see credit cards is instead of using your debit card, you're using the credit card to earn the credit score and to earn the cashback or the rewards that they have. But immediately you can send that money to pay the credit card. So debts themselves are a whole specific topic that we are going to talk in the next session. But here we are talking about the strategies to access and have a credit score. So it's super, super important that you understand that you can access early, but it doesn't mean access to a debt. Accessing early means accessing to a credit system. That's why the best way to do it is through a credit card because there is where you have actually decision. You are not gonna be owing anything if you use it just as an intermediate paying between what you would do with I mean if you use it as an intermediate between something that you would pay with your debit card anyways or with cash that you have anyways. So entering the credit system doesn't mean having a debt, and this is super, super important. So start soon, start wisely, and that's the best key. If you close a credit card or an account, this is gonna stay in the history, counting the average and the time and everything during 10 years in the US. Um, so that's good, but the moment that it reaches the year 11, it's gonna disappear and then that average is gonna be lost. So a good tip here is choose what you like the most, but your oldest credits, for instance, you don't like a credit card anymore, but it's your first credit card. So maybe it's better to keep it open, to use it every 6 months, which is the minimum utilization to not trigger banks to close your accounts. So you use it every 6 months for something that you would pay with your debit card or cash anyways, as we have been talking. And then it just keep building the time, because otherwise it's gonna disappear from your name after 10 years. This is not the same in every country, so you will have to check how is in your country of interest if you are also building credit score elsewhere, okay? Then we have the new credit. So far we have seen 35% impacted by payment history, 30% impacting by amount owed, 10% impacted by the length of credit history, 15% now is going to be impacted by the new credit. So new credit are all inquiries that are considered like hard inquiries. The idea is that we only have hard inquiries around 1 to 2 in 2 years. So on average, like 1 per year maximum. And if we really need more than that, try to be maximum 4. And pay attention, because it's not just what you get approved, but also what you applied for, and is considered a hard inquiry. So what is a hard inquiry? Credit cards, store, retail cards, auto loans, mortgages, lines of credit, personal loans, student loans, all of these things, right? The big loans that we would actually consider. It's important to take into account that in the case of credit cards and this type of open lines, these inquiries are all counted as one. Even if I apply for 2 credit cards today, it counts as 2 hard inquiries. But in the case of car loans or home, for instance, they are considered life normal milestones. So the credit system gives like 40 days. You have to check in the time that you're gonna do it, but like normally it's around 2 weeks for you to kind of shop around different credit opportunities in case that you need it. So the idea is that everything that you shop around during these 2 weeks is counted just as one hard inquiry, because again, these type of loans are considered normal life milestones. So the system kind of give this time for you to shop around and make your best decision without affecting your credit score that bad. And then you have soft inquiries. So in soft inquiries, you have checking your own score through official systems, having pre-approval offers, employer background checks, insurance screenings. So all these type of things are soft inquiries. And also about the hard inquiries and this type of diversity, be very mindful about what are sneaky inquiries, which is like things that are sold like an easy access to something, but in reality is going to be counted as a hard inquiry. For instance, if you get phone contract, these contracts that are like for some time, that you have to pay certain money, double check how they actually give you that. If they are going to apply a hard inquiry or a soft inquiry, you can ask them that. before they make any processing. Also, for utility apartment, normally these things are soft inquiries, but if they make a mistake or they are processing different for any reason, then you may have a hard inquiry without you intending that. So be very mindful of these sneaky inquiries. Um, to really play between this hard inquiry, diversity, all these things so that you can really understand what you're doing. And then the last 10% is going to be impacted by diversity of type of credits. So here is super important that you keep this in mind, because it's better to have, for instance, one car loan short. Even better if you, for instance, right now in the US, there is a tax credit for the interest rate that you pay for a car. For instance, there is a program. You have to see if it's still valid. But for instance, I'm saying this example because if you apply, like it has different requirements. It has different features and things that you have to check very wisely. But if that program applies to you, for instance, the government would deduct from your taxes the next year all the interest rate that you pay for the car this year. So that would be amazing, right? Like you could get a mix of credit, like you could get at least one portion of the car, the minimum possible if you want, through the credit line for the car. The interest rate is going to be absorbed by the government, in this case, in this example. And then if you also have like a credit card and you do a good use of it, as we have been talking, then you have two different credits in a very excellent way, using it according to your budget, as a way to pay, as a strategy, not as a unhealthy debt. And then this is going to be better than having two credit cards, for instance. So diversity is better than multiplying the types of credits. So far what we have, 30% of your credit score is going to be impacted by how much you use from the credit that you can access at a moment of every moment that you are in the building this history of credit. 35% is going to be impacted by that you pay on time, at least the minimum, hopefully the statement balance at least. But the other kind of 35% too are gonna be together affected by diversity, amount of hard increase, and length of the credit history. So all of these three things individually don't weigh that much, but together they actually weigh like a third of your credit score. So decide your strategies there, but don't get also in the pressure of anything. Like the best that you can do in this third part is start the sooner the better, with things that won't imply an unhealthy debt. Avoid hard increase, like choose the best that you want to have in the long term in the beginning and then stop, so that you don't have so many hard inquiries going on. And when you have a good chance, a good opportunity, then diversify, but don't feel pressure to do that, because that only weighs the 10%. Okay? If you want, take a moment to really see this thing and think what you're doing well. If you want, put it in the comments, like what you're doing well, what you can improve in these strategies. I'm gonna give like 1 minute for that, or write it down in your notes, like what you're doing well and what you can improve regarding the way that you are building the credit score. If you haven't started, we are gonna talk about that in a moment. But you, of course, can start diving into how you feel that would be better to enter the game. So where do we see our credit score? The main bureaus that calculate the credit score are Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. You can check all of them once a year freely through annualcreditreport.com. And Experience also have two different services. One is Free Credit Report, and the other is Get Your Free FICO Score through Experian FICO. Here it's important that at least once a year you actually check the whole thing fully, because if you see an error, it's important that you get supporting documents and report it ASAP, like as soon as possible. You have to do that with every bureau that has something wrong in your credit history. And for that, you contact, after you document everything, you contact the source of the problem, requesting a solution. For instance, if there is a phone line that I am not using and never used, then I have to contact first the phone company and ask them to correct with the bureaus. If that doesn't resolve it, then you can file a complaint with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and the Department of Justice, and also with each bureau that is involved. You can also check through month to month in the apps, like apps for budgeting, like Credit Karma, banks or credit cards, platforms like Capital One, Chase, SoFi, whatever you use. You can check also in your monthly credit card statement, for instance. And then you also have to discover your FICO score for free. All of these options are very easy to access, at least in the US, but you just have to take into account which bureau or which type of credit score they are calculating, because some of these calculations can be very hard. Is the way that they think, for instance, if they take average in the length or take time, or there are different things that varies a bit between bureaus. So when you can see a different credit score in different platforms, but they are gonna vary by 5 points or 8 points or things like that. So in the range, you're gonna actually fall in the same range unless you are in the limit of it. So just keep that in mind. But that's where you can actually see your credit score. A pro tip here is go to opt-out pre-screen, because as soon as you get one type of credit, you start getting a lot of offers. I don't know if you have experienced that. So this is junk mail, and it's also temptation. So if you opt out pre-screen only online, you're gonna get rid of this for only 5 years. But if you actually mail the request, they take you out of the pre-screening forever. So I really feel that it's better to do it by mail, and make sure that you are not gonna be having this junk mail going on in all houses, and also temptations for you, and that this is not gonna come back after some years. So how do you start? So how do you start? One option is to consider entry-level credit cards. These are open, for instance, for students or other types of profiles that don't require credit score. You can also check secure credit cards or loans secured by your own savings, or you can get as an authorized user on other person credit card if everyone related to that account is super responsible, because they are gonna, from the moment that you get as an authorized user, you're gonna share the behavior. It's just one thing that is gonna be reported. So really double check how sharing a credit card, being authorized user, impacts your, what are you gonna share from the behavior? For instance, paying on time is gonna be shared, and double check everything else, like what are you gonna be sharing, and then make sure that you get authorized with someone that is super responsible and that you are also responsible, so that this is a win-win for everyone and nobody's gonna get damaged for that. You can also access a credit builder loan, which are a structured savings plan to build credit history. So these are programs where you actually commit to save, for instance, $100 per month. And if you do that like for a year, you're gonna have a good credit score because they report it as a debt, but it's actually not a loan. It's a credit builder loan, which is actually a structured savings plan that they report that way, because in this way you are showing them that you actually can commit to pay things this time. Or maybe there are other type of credit builder loans by the moment that you see this or that you need it. So just dive into Google and double check. But of course, be very careful of what links you click on and where you're putting your data. Make sure that you are in official sites always. And about bills, they don't necessarily impact your credit score. Some of the bills you can actually add to Experian Boost to boost your credit score. But the best way here is just avoid late payments, avoid getting into collections. All these things about bills is about avoiding problems with bills so that your credit score don't get damaged. But for starting, you need to actually enter the credit system. So if you choose to go for a credit card, either to start the credit score or at any point that you want to access a credit card, what to take into account to choose good ones. One thing that I like a lot is when they don't have foreign fees, because this is good for both traveling and also to access services that are built in other countries. And you can be in your country, but maybe you're paying something that is charged as a foreign purchase. And if you don't have foreign fees, it's way better. There are many options for this and many others that actually have foreign fees. So be careful with that. Other things that I like is I like to find like the best that I like and that I actually intend to keep, because they are going to help to build time, and also they are going to make my life easy if I am clear about like, okay, I have, as we are talking, we should use credit cards for things that we actually have budget, that we actually would pay for with debit or with cash if we didn't have the credit card. So in that case, it's better to get an idea with the budget. Okay, I want to pay gas with credit card. I want to pay these bills with credit card. I want to pay these type of purchases with credit cards because that money is actually in my account and I can simply pay it to a credit card quickly. It's not going to become an unhealthy debt. So to have that clarity in your brain, you need to actually understand what credit cards you want and what you are going to use them for. So that's why, for instance, I don't like very much to get into a store credit cards or things like that, because yes, they have nice welcome rewards and things like that, but they are going to imply a hard inquiry. It's not going to be useful for many things. So be really mindful of why you are entering into a new credit line through credit card or through store cards or any way that you decide. So you can check this in Google. Of course, be mindful with safety, what you click on, like that they are official sites, all these things. But you can actually Google what you want, like best credit cards in the US with no foreign fees, for instance. And then you can see what it shows you. And you make sure that you are entering in safe links, and then you can choose from there. You can also go to the main companies that own credit cards, which are Visa and MasterCard. There are others, but these are like the main ones. And they actually have in their system credit cards that are in their brand, because you will see that credit cards always have either Visa or MasterCard or what is the brand that is behind. It doesn't matter if you get it through Wells Fargo or through Capital One, or in the end, they are going to be all part of either Visa, MasterCard, Diners. Those are the main ones that I know. You can also check out NetWallet, Bankrate, creditcards.com, and what to check besides the foreign fees. Check if they charge annual fees, if they have welcome or referral rewards, if they have cashback or points, for which categories, how you can use those points or cashback. It's important that you have protection for purchases that you don't do. This is normally called zero liability protection or purchase protection, and other benefits like travel insurance or phone insurance or things like that. Then you compare all of the options that you like, and then you choose the best ones, and then you start making the plan to apply for them as your as your credit score grows, and also taking into account that you don't make so many hard inquiries within a short time frame. And the interest rate, it it shouldn't matter because you are not gonna use it for an unhealthy debt. So if for any reason you're gonna use it as a debt, then you have to pay attention to the interest rate. But in the way that we are talking today, we are not using it as a debt. We are using it as a tool between what you would pay with cash or debit card. It means that you already have the money for that. That if you didn't have the credit card, you would still pay that. And in this case, the interest rate is not gonna matter because you are gonna pay the whole statement balance by the due date, so you are not going to be charged any interest rate. And also, try to have maximum 2 to 3, maximum 5 credit cards, but best 2 or 3, because in this way you can diversify, but you can also manage them well. If you really like better, now that you have a credit score that is better, you really like better other than the one that you first opened. That this is happening to me, for instance, you can always keep the first one as a backup, use it every 6 months, keep it to build the length in the history. But if you have backups, go maximum 5. If you but your main ones should be 2 or 3, to make it easy to manage, easy to pay, easy to flow, instead of like having a bunch of things and then having to administrate a lot. As you can see, the more we grow, the more things we have to admin, to optimize, to have live systems to handle. So the less complications, the better. So we are gonna make the integration of this session by first check your credit score. Or if you don't have credit score right now, make a plan for that. So pause the video, take your time, check your credit score, either through the websites, through the apps, or both. And if you don't have a credit score right now, make the decision of how you want to start. Pause the video and do that. The second exercise is opt out from the junk mail temptations if you want. So go to the website that I shared and do the process. Pause the video while you do that and then play again. Now the next exercise is gonna be to go to your budget, check what things from your monthly life you can actually pay with credit card as a tool to pay and to build a credit card, but that you would still pay in cash or debit card if you didn't have the credit card, because everything else would be a debt. And so the way that we are using this here is as a strategy, not as a debt. So go to your budget, double check. So for instance, the gas, we can pay in credit card. Just go in what you have numbers in your budget and check which things you can actually pay with a credit card. And this also applies to savings. Like sometimes we can save for a trip or for car maintenance or things like that. And then we can pay with the credit card, earn cash back, use the credit card. But then we can actually simply do this thing in the middle. We earn cash back, things like that. And then we simply pay because we have that in our that money is in our power anyways. And also take advantage of this exercise to also double check your credit cards, which ones you have, what to use them for. I really like to put, for instance, in the credit card, like what are the things that I'm gonna mainly use it for, and then with this tape that is like yellowish, I put like with Sharpie in the tape what are the use for that, and then it make it super easy for me to live day by day. Okay, this is for restaurants, this is for gas, this is for whatever I need, and this is for everything else. So pause the video and organize your strategy to use your credit cards if you want. You can also make it simple, but and maybe just trade off the cashback or the rewards or things like that by simply having one, use it every 6 months, and keep it simple. That's another way that you could use it. So pause the video, choose your strategy, and then come back. And now our last exercise is gonna be that you start finding a monthly time where you're gonna do a money checking date. We are gonna have a whole session for this, but it's super important that you go there to your agenda and start thinking, okay, for me would be fine Sundays mornings, when the month start, or the last week of the month, and if you travel or something, what is gonna be your backup for that date? If you're gonna do it then on the next week or the week before, or how you're gonna manage if you actually cannot do it but start finding that time. So if you want, pause the video or just keep this in mind, because when we get into the session for the check-in dates, you're gonna need this information and start thinking of this is better to do it with time. Time needs time to be planned. Okay, and so please let me know what are your key takeaways. You can put that in the comments of the video. And I hope you really enjoy it, that you really understood what is the strategy to be a good player in the credit score game. And I hope you the best building this. And I'll see you in the next session. Have a very wonderful rest of your day, of your week, or evening, whenever you are seeing this. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.